to call our meeting to order. Tonight's first agenda item is the Renberg School Facilities Planning. Dr. Nold, will you please give to the board a brief outline on what we're going to go over in the context of agenda item 2, the Renberg School Facilities Planning?
Okay, thank you, and thank you for those that are here in attendance and board members. We'll go through and just give a little bit of a lineup of the agenda that you'll see this evening. And in the first part on it there, we'll have Mr. Conrad present the information, very similar to the information that was presented at the staff meeting that we've had and the 2 parent communication sessions that we've had. So it'll be a presentation of very similar information that way. There'll also be information on the considerations that Mr. Conrad will go through and talk about some of those. I'll also share a few of those as well, of just some of the information that we took away from the listening sessions, the feedback sessions, the conversation with the staff. And then there will be a recommendation that will be made to the board that I will make to the board on behalf of the administration. School board will be able to then ask any follow-up questions they would like to. At that point in time, we would have the community input so that they would be able to have time to be able to give that input. And then at the end, we'll have a conversation again with the board in any summary or follow-up questions or things that you would have as next steps. And so that would be the agenda. So we'll start with Mr. Conrad to be able to go through the presentation of the information.
Super. And while he's coming up, I just want to acknowledge that we have some guests here this evening and want you to know we're glad you're here. And we look forward to listening to you after the presentation. So thank you for being here.
All right, good evening. So as we started the conversation about Renberg, we started out from the lens of what are some advantages that might be if kids weren't attending Renberg. We also looked at maybe what are some disadvantages if we were to close Renberg and what would that look like. And so the first couple slides here outline some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages because there's pros and cons to many things that we go through. Maybe start back one step outlining the process. So as Dr. Nold said, we started speaking with staff and shared out the same information you're going to see tonight to staff, and then we had 2 parent listening sessions. And in between those, we also spoke with city planning to kind of hear what the future plans of the city of Sioux Falls were and what its growth projection would be and what it might look like. So when we talk about advantages, for those students who are traveling a distance to Renberg, there would be some reduced time on buses. Renberg's currently at about 106 students, and one advantage might be larger special classes. You can have a larger band class, a larger orchestra class for more instruments if those students went to a different school. Blended classes, when you have small class sizes, you have to blend a 2nd and 3rd grade or a 3rd and 4th grade, or you might have to do all those blendings to make the staffing work. So if the school were to close and move to another school, that might be seen as an advantage to some. That might be seen as a disadvantage to some. So really coming at it with an open mind and lens as we look through these things. There is a financial impact of having Renberg open. When we started out with the staff, we told staff all staff will have a similar position in the Sioux Falls School District next year if you wish to stay. The staff, each year we turn over a certain number of teachers, and these teachers would all have jobs as well as the administration, the clerical, the ESPs, the custodians. But there would be a budget savings between $500,000 and $700,000 annually. And then just some building upgrades and taking care of our facilities, about $2.6 million in capital outlay that would be postponed. And those aren't necessarily attached, the annual savings and capital outlay, those can be separated as we looked at it. And then specials teachers. So if you have a 1-section school, which Renberg is, the specials teachers, your band teacher travels out there for 1 day and then is at a different school, your orchestra teacher, your PE teacher, your librarian. A lot of staff are traveling. When we looked at some of the disadvantages, students who currently open enrolled to Renberg because they made that choice, that's where they wanted their children to attend school, that's where they went. That would be a disadvantage to that family. Students who are adjacent to Renberg, I use adjacent, but that would be anybody living near Renberg. It would be a disadvantage in their minds to close the school, right? It's been part of that community for a long time. And then that small school setting. And Renberg is capacity is 1 section at each grade level. So 1 kindergarten, 1 first grade, 1 second grade. And that's a small school setting. That's attractive to some families. So to frame the conversation, we first looked at it through an enrollment lens, and you'll see the chart in front of you has an enrollment history from 2018-19 school year to the 25-26 school year. Grade levels are on the left-hand, that first column, and the years are across the top. So if you look at the 25-26 school year, there's currently 14 in kinder, 18 in first. But when you look at the highlighted diagonals, that's a tracking of kids in that grade. So when we look at the 23-24 kindergarten class of 26, that class tracks through and it's now a class of 16 second graders. So the diagonal provides just a historical perspective of what does that enrollment look like, as well as the enrollments across the bottom. And some of it, Renberg was full, and then Marcella LeBeau opened up, which helped out with some of that enrollment, and that's why you see probably some of that decline from 24-25 to 25-26 as Marcella just opened up. But most of the students there are probably traveling from Northwest Sioux Falls. The next question, as we kind of break into that enrollment a little bit further, of the 106 students, 84 live in Renberg's HAC, and we're going to show you a picture of what that looks like. 12 are open enrolled to Renberg that are out of district open enrollments, and 10 are open enrolled from within the district. So choosing from a different elementary to go up to Renberg. Also interesting to note that there are currently 77 students who are in Renberg's HAC that have chosen to attend a different Sioux Falls school somewhere else that have already opened up. So if you looked at it, there's one way to look at it. If you looked at everybody that was inside Renberg's HAC, it's about 150 some students that would live there. But 77 are choosing to open enroll out. So the next, I set this slide up for the next one, which kind of shows a geographic slide, and it's going to talk about distances traveled. And looking at families and knowing that our elementaries are community schools and how far do kids and families have to travel to school. So I set it up by saying, if we take out those 10 students in the district who are open enrolled, and those 10 students are typically in southern Sioux Falls, and they would skew the mileage traveled to get to Renberg. So I just pulled those out and said, let's pause on those 10 students. But let's look at the 96 that remain. Of those 96, 16 of those 96 live closer to Renberg, and 80 travel further to Renberg than they could to another elementary in Sioux Falls. This slide, so the question is, where's the closest school? So if you look at top center, I'll use my mouse here if I can get it going. So right up in the top center region is the Renberg HAC. So it's this big piece, center Sioux Falls, north edge. The highlighted region to the left, which is western Sioux Falls, that would be Marcella LeBeau's boundary. Right in the heart where you see the word Sioux Falls, there's a lighter colored region just to the left, that would be Garfield. Just to the right of that would be Hawthorne. Just below is Lowell as you work around the district. But each dot on this map represents a student. So if we frame it up inside the big rectangle, there are 15 students that live in that region that attend Renberg. The reason why it's not 16, there is one student that open enrolled from Colton. Couldn't quite fit him on my geographic map and keep it so that we could read it. So that would be the 16th student. If I look at my next region, my next rectangle, and you can see Marcella LeBeau approximately pointed out on the map, there's 68 students in that pocket that live pretty close to Marcella LeBeau. And then when we look at another pocket of students along Cliff Avenue and I-90, that kind of Cliff Avenue corridor, there's 12 students there that would live closer to Laura B. Anderson. So when we put it all together, here's the one big picture of where are the kids that attend Renberg located geographically in the city of Sioux Falls. And you can see some dots just by the 68 students. Those students would be living in the Tri-Valley School District that have open enrolled to Renberg. So that's our pockets of where's the closest school. Another piece to look at that is if we look at, okay, if these kids are traveling to Renberg, 79 of those 96 students travel more than 4.7 miles. That's the big graph in the middle. If we said, what's the average? It's 5.1 miles. If we said, what's the most common? What do most kids travel? 5.5. That's that pocket down by Marcella. And then the last piece, if we look at, if they went to Marcella or LBA, another school, what did that do for distance traveled? So the average distance is now 3.1 miles traveled with the most common distance 1.9. And that references that pocket of kids just north of Marcella-LeBeau that travel about 1.9 miles to get to Marcella, if they were there. So when we talk about time on bus and proximity to schools, that's data to present just to share with the board. What does that look like for our kids and families? The next slide, we talk about city planning, and we talk about, okay, what information come forward. So pause with me a second. I'm going to go back a slide to show you the map. If we look at the map and get a clean picture, when we talked with the city said the area just east of I-29, where you see the mouse, and just north of I-90, this corridor along the interstate is zoned industrial. The next segment, when you work to the middle, which is along the waterway and just south of Renner, it sits in a floodplain. And right now the city doesn't have plans of developing that in their 2050 plan, what it would look like in the year 2050. So they don't have plans for putting infrastructure out there other than what's currently existing. And then the next boundary we look at is over on Cliff Avenue, which is this boundary of the Sioux Falls School District. Anything east of that is the Brandon Valley School District. And so when we look at populations and where that growth might be in communicating with the city, right now that area is not slated to be developed. And the city has their tiers. Tier 1 is 1 to 5 years, Tier 2 planning is 5 to 10, and then Tier 3 is a little further out from that. So we go back to our conversation with the city, that airport area is not planned for significant growth based on the data that they have, the city had shared with us. East of I-29, north of I-90, we talked about being zoned industrial, and then we talked about the future growth in Sioux Falls, and that future growth is west. So they shared this map with us. My colors aren't great, so I'll try to work with this, but the big square in the middle, you can see where Marcella George McGovern is located. What is directly north of that is Sioux Falls School District property, and that's zoned to be developed, ready for use. It's ready right now to be built out. And so there's growth, and I want to say it's maybe a brown area beside that blue, and as you work down and around, those are the areas that are scheduled to be built out. What I would say maybe green as you move further west, that's North La Mesa. That's not scheduled in the 1 to 5 year build out. That's a little further down, but it's still Sioux Falls School District property where kids there would go to Sioux Falls School District. So there's growth potential heading west. And right now we're hearing from the city that growth potential isn't heading north, closing that distance between Renner and the city. So we conducted staff feedback sessions. So I tried to summarize it as best I could as we captured it, and we listened and tried to capture the questions they had and answer them best we could. What you're going to see a commonality is number one across whether it's staff, parents, the group we spoke with, they love Renberg. They love their culture. They love the small school setting. They love the sense of community that's spent there. Staff and parents alike love the Renberg sense of community at the school. They had questions about long-term enrollment and what those enrollment boundaries might do. If that Northwest is going to grow, there was conversation about some families may have switched districts a couple times. What does that look like? Has that been taken into consideration? And then staff had questions about the placement process. What does that look like? If they could be lifted up and moved to the same school, they would really love that. But that's the part of, they love who they work with and they love the school they work at. And I think that's a common theme throughout the district, which is we greatly appreciate. And then transportation, equity, and continuity for students. If we talk about the first parent feedback session, again, that love of Renberg we talked about, but they talked about enrollment, boundaries, transportation, how big are the class sizes at elementaries that the Renberg students would go to. There was, if you're heading into a bigger school, does that mean bigger class sizes? What does that look like? They wondered about future boundary stability. Are the elementary boundaries going to move again? Are they going to shift as we try to accommodate the growth in Northwest Sioux Falls? And there was some uneasiness that Renberg's closure appears to be for budgetary reasons as we look at all the pictures. Putting that on there to say that we're looking at all these things as we formulate the big picture. And then they expressed interest in alternative solutions. Is there anything we could do that would see a reality where Renberg stays open? The tough part of that is Renberg's current structure is a one-section school. It's one of everything. And if all those classes had 25 kids in it, it's about 150 is its capacity. And that's if everybody had 25 in every class. So we talked about alternative solutions. The second parent feedback session, you're hearing a lot of the same conversation about closure, growth, how can we market the program? We love our school was the first thing that came up. You see those, right? So we're hearing that across a couple, well, like all three listening sessions, we heard it across all three. So if I were to summarize it, they love their school. We have questions about enrollment, boundaries, and long-term planning. What alternatives to closure could there be? What about transportation, student placement, transitions, and just that balance, financial impact and student impact, and what's that balance as we bring those two things together? Because it is about the kids, and it is about the staff, and it's about the community. So that pulls all of our feedback that we had from the various groups forward in the conversation, and now we're at specific questions that came up that I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Knoll that he will speak towards with regards to, there was a conversation about Hawthorne, alternatives, and future elementary and school additions. So at this time, I'll send it to Dr. Knoll.
So there were a few questions that came up as we went through the conversations with the staff and predominantly with the parents, and one of those Hawthorne Elementary. And so if it's a question on loss of enrollment, why not look at some of the other schools that have lost some enrollment? And Hawthorne Elementary was one of those that came up in that because they had lost a number of students. The explanation on that is we had purposely taken some students from that Career Avenue area that would go to Marcelo Lebeau, and because we knew if we didn't move them, we would have too many students at Renberg to be able to hold it. So for the meantime, which the board had approved a couple years ago, we transferred and bused those students over to Hawthorne Elementary. As soon as Marcelo Lebeau opened, that became part of the Marcelo Lebeau boundary. So the loss of students at Hawthorne was due to the fact that we had held those students there until we moved them over. Hawthorne in and of itself is still 300 and some students when you count the enrollment of their early childhood. So that enrollment aspect of it is still a little bit more unique in nature to what we would see at Renberg, that it's small, one, because the building is built for a one-section school, 150 students or 160 students, depending on how large you have the class sizes. For elementary, it'd actually be just under 150 students. Where that's not the case where Hawthorne does have significantly more, and the numbers they lost were because of our enrollment and the boundaries we'd already agreed to. The other part of it is, are there alternatives to closing the school, like looking at moving a specialty school there? The difficulty of it is still with the specialty school, we would bus students even further distance if we were to move some type of a specialty school there. You would then be pulling students from the whole district, because with specialty schools, they're able to then come from with anywhere in that district, our district, Sioux Falls School District, so we'd be busing probably the most significant distance that we would. And there's still schools available within the center of our school district that we could have rooms open for specialty schools as well to expand or start new. And so we have talked about some of that. That's some conversations we'll have into the future of what could be some options to help with some of those schools who some of their numbers have declined slightly. Building in addition to the school, it could be. We talked about, there's a process right now, and we made this clear from the very beginning. Closing a school such as Renberg does not mean we would not build additional schools. We build schools where students are at. And so much to the fact of Marcelo Lebeau, there's a growth there. There will continue to be a growth there that we see across to the north and to the west. And some of that is still Sioux Falls School District land, some of which could be by open enrollment, but there's definitely the Sioux Falls School District land. So building an addition, does it make sense to build an addition onto a Renberg to make it a 2 or 3 section? We would still have to bus a significant distance. Where you have some other schools down there, such as Marcelo Lebeau, that could be expanded, or even some new schools, building new schools that we'll talk about a little bit here as well. And then the future elementary schools and additions, I'll talk about that here in a little more detail on another slide that I have. So when we go to that part, some considerations as we go through and look at a recommendation for the board from the administration. First of all, obviously the care for students, and it's for all students. We did hear feedback from families that came there, and we greatly appreciate that. We value that feedback. There's also individuals, we estimate there's somewhere between 10 to 20 families, somewhere around that 15 mark of families that were represented at those meetings between the two different meetings. There's a significant number of individuals that live in that Career Avenue area that were not represented, and they're there, and we bus them the greatest distance to go up to Renberg. So when we talk about the care of students, all students, the students that live in that Renberg area and the students that do not, that would have a school that would be closer to them. Care for staff. We had expressed to staff right away that no staff member that wishes to be in the Sioux Falls School District would not have a very similar position. Where it'd be located, we'd work on that because they'd have the very first preference. We go through their placements first. And we work through a process of that to make sure, would they all be at the exact same school? As I expressed to them, I can't say that because some may not want to be at the same school or some may want to. And we would look on that at the availability, obviously, where would be a considerable number of openings if we were to change this. Well, obviously at Marcelo Lebeau. Educational services at Renberg, we talked some about that as well. Best interest of all families. The travel aspect we've talked about. And so when we look through that aspect of the travel, obviously you're looking at some areas there where the predominant number of dots are on this map, and they're traveling a great distance. So is that a consideration? Absolutely it is, especially when you looked at that as an area up there with the 15 students compared to the areas that have the 68 and the 12 students. Predominantly that area of obviously the 68 students. And so when you combine all those things, absolutely we looked at the travel. I'll go back up to that part. Educational opportunities, Mr. Conrad's talked a little bit about that. The other thing that comes into a significant play is movement of boundaries and finance. And so I'm gonna move down a few slides here to talk about that and go into a little more detail. These are some of the things that we didn't necessarily talk about in some of those meetings, but if you look at that, these are two maps side by side. One is just the one to the far right is the entire boundaries of the Sioux Falls School District. And you can see I have a red dot there where Marcelo Lebeau is, and so that's the red dot, clear to the west and a little bit to the north part of it. And then there's an arrow down to the bottom. That's an area that was annexed into the Sioux Falls School District that will be developed soon. So that area is going to be developed coming up here. But that's that arrow down to the bottom. So that's the outline of the entire Sioux Falls School District. If I kind of break it into corridors or areas for you, you really look at Area 1. North of 12th Street, there's two schools there, Marcelo Lebeau and Hayward. And so when you're looking at those areas there, those two, Hayward is fairly close to capacity. Marcelo Lebeau, obviously we have room to grow. Could there be an expansion onto that school? There could be. But there's obviously room to grow right now. It's built as a 4-section school, and there's approximately 280 students, give or take, right in there, depending on what the enrollment is right now, that are currently there. So it's built for a 4-section school, could be added on to. But those are the two there, and you look at those being more so Marcella going to be at capacity eventually, and Hayward probably at that. Then you go to the Area 2, which would go south of 12th Street, and you're looking at Discovery, Oscar Howe, Pettigrew, and JFK, most of which 5-section schools, fairly close to capacity. And you look again at that arrow over there with the area that's going to be developed. It's not quite to that stage yet, but it will be developed. Is there a plan to eventually build another elementary in there? Yes, that's part of the plan that would be part of the bond that would take effect in the vote that would include the Whittier Middle School. And so we'll have to, because of the capacities there, and we'll do some shifts in there at that point in time. Then you look more through the center of the school district, and I'm staying on that half of so still staying on the west side of the district. All cities, a school that you do have to apply for and entered in, so I'm not including that, I've crossed it out. But you have Hawthorne, Garfield, Lowell, and Lower Wilder. Sonia Sotomayor, obviously another one that you would apply for. Those all are under capacity. Obviously significantly larger than Renberg enrollment-wise, but still under capacity for what we have as space. So when we go through some of this information, it's really just to talk through the process of where's the growth? Absolutely to that west, out in that area. Not to the north, but clearly to the west. When we work with the city, where's the growth going to be? Clearly to that west. And so as we look at schools, could there be expansion onto a current school? Absolutely. Could there be the building of a brand new elementary school? I would anticipate so, especially in that Lenox area. Would we build anything additional in the middle of the city? No. But some of that is also going to take some boundary changes that we'll be looking at coming up. And I think that's an important thing. As I go to the next slide here, you see again with Marcelo, that green blue area, Marcelo Lebeau's there, and that's what we talked about. The brown and the blue is where they're opening up very soon for growth. Matter of fact, that area in blue, they plan to open up immediately, and so that'll be some very quick growth. You're going to see some of that down by the JFK, Pettigrew, that area as well, as we go to the south there. So that's just part of our look at where do we have to move boundaries in time and by what time frame do we move those. One of our goals in there is to not have families move more than once. The families that are currently in the Renberg area did not have to move. I mean, their boundaries have stayed. The ones that we did move for a short amount of time, 2 years, over to Hawthorne have now been able to move back over to Marcelo Lebeau, and that opened. So currently the individuals in the Renberg have not moved in there, but we obviously do not want to move families more than once in the time span of their child's elementary career. So that 5 years is what we usually look at. So you look at some of the district reductions, finances. We have over last year, there was $3 million of ongoing budgetary costs that we eliminated from the budget. This next year, we'll look at about another $1 million again, somewhere in there. And next year, something the same. Then I think we do have things to where we'll be in a state where we'll be good. That does not mean that we would not still look at other things that may cost money that are not effective and try to add things in programming that are effective. Now, will that absolutely balance it out? I don't know. Part of it, you look at the savings, that would be $500,000 to $750,000. We still feel those are even possibly conservative numbers. When you look at all the staffing and other things that take place at the building, some more of the estimates that came in today would continue to increase that, because even the service calls and the calls through the year so far have added up to about $50,000. And so you look at those things, that's part of the cost of running a building, and that's okay. That's what we accept on that. But then you look at the state general funds, the allocation of the funds from the state. Last year, 25-26, for this current year, they allocated 1.25%. The 26-27 year, we don't know. The current indication is to expect 0%. You can't continue. We would have to look at where we're going to eliminate some of the costs in our district, and we're already planning some of those things if those type of financial outcomes continue to come from the state. Then you also look at capital outlay, opt-outs, and bonds. What does that look like as we move forward? And so as we continue to look at some of those things, there's multiple factors that we take into consideration. I will say a couple of the significant ones in this, obviously the care for the kids, and that includes all kids, to make sure we're caring for those that are driving an extensive distance to those that are not. How can we minimize some of that? How do we help? Savings, dollars and cents, there's obviously a factor of that comes into play, and what could be the state's general fund allocations for this next year. We know what it was obviously this last year. What will it be this next year? So as we start to go through, I put together the administrative recommendation, and this would be the recommendation that I would bring forward to the board at this time. First of all, have the board vote on the proposed closure of the Renberg School in the first semester of the 26-27 school year. The vote by the board would be in the 26-27 school year, not the closure in the 26-27 school year. The closure aspect of that would be looking at the 27-28 school year, and the board would have to consider that prior to November 30th of this next school year. So approximately 1 year from today. This would allow time to look at, because we did just have information from the city that they've opened up some of those areas for growth now in the single family housing, the multifamily housing, and to see so that we can try to minimize and keep to that. What we try to do is one move, so study additional boundary changes that may impact some of those other schools that I mentioned through the heart of the city and along that west side. Because we obviously know there'll be some changes on that west side if we were to open up a new school in that Lenox area. Well, do we have to move that ahead, or are we fine in the 5-year plan that we currently have? Or can it even wait longer than 5 years? We're working with the city on some additional projections on that of what that growth will be and what we anticipate coming from multi and single family housing in those areas. So it gives us additional time to be able to look at some of those changes to hopefully only require one move at that elementary level. It also allows us time to be able to look at the details on the growth in that area, to look to see what that will be and determine what building additions are potentially needed and by when. So my recommendation to the board is that we will continue to analyze those things, continue to have conversation, continue through and bring information to the board so that we have updated information, continue to meet with the city, look at those allocations of where the boundaries are and the number of students, and then we would readdress this area in the fall or prior to November 30th of 2026. At this time, I'd stand by Mr. Conrad or myself to be able to answer questions for the board.
Yes, Gail.
Dr. Nold, could you show us on one of those maps what area you're talking about that is going to be open to new residences, new residential growth?
Yes, I'd be happy to, and Mr. Conrad will have him go back to that. And so really, if you look on that one, the area that's really going to open up, you see where Mr. Conrad has his cursor now? That bump out right above, so that's just to the north of George McGovern and Marcelo LeBeau. They're opening up. There's a quarter in there, approximately a quarter section that's going to be opened up much more immediately, the blue. And then the brown is the remaining part of that that's going to be opened up very shortly after that. So we're looking at all that probably between 1 to 5 years of residential. They do have the hoop barn there. We've known that, and we know their process that they're going to be expediting the building of homes there. Same way in that blue area. And we know that Marcelo LeBeau still has quite a bit of space available there. Obviously, they're not even halfway probably to that capacity per se, or close to the halfway mark, not quite. So we feel pretty comfortable in that with that growth area. We still feel pretty comfortable with the movement of Marcelo LeBeau, area from Renberg into Marcelo LeBeau. Part of the question is going to be, do we have to change some boundaries in there? If we do that, let's see if we can do it all at one time going through that whole west side. Maybe we don't need to, but I think we'll afford ourselves, since the city came with this new information again, which is great. We enjoy the conversation and the commitment of our city to update our information all the time. But I think it affords us some time to be able to look at that, to see if we can change and include some of those in the center of the city that do have open space, and then space along that whole west side. You'll see a lot of this green, especially going through that whole bottom. That's looking at that 5 year to just outside of 5 years. And then you see a scattering of the blue and brown going throughout there. Brown and blue is the 1 to 5 years.
Any other questions?
I was just looking, can we go back to the feedback from the parent?
Yep.
Thank you. I was just wondering, I feel like we're missing, maybe, and maybe not, maybe it just didn't get brought up. There were 68 students by Marcella, and so one of the feedback that I anticipated was that there would be a little bit of positive feedback, knowing that they would go from 5 miles to maybe a mile or less.
Nope.
But I didn't see that on here. So I'm wondering if that ever got brought up, or if maybe there wasn't representation from that pocket of people that live there, or maybe that's just not something we totally care about.
Good question. A predominance of the individuals that attended the sessions did not live in that area.
Okay.
There was one family that did. They just wanted to know, will they be busing? That was their main concern, because I will tell you the significant number of individuals living in that Career Avenue area need busing. They need family busing. Their ability to have the same access to transportation is very limited. So they need to have that busing. It was assured that those areas would be bused to Marcelo LeBeau. The same way on the other side of that, those individuals that may be closer to LBA would be bused. The only time they would not be bused from those areas would be if they decide to open enroll. So other individuals that have open enrolled, there's 70-some individuals that did not, that live in that Renberg area, that have chosen to go to other schools in the district. When they open enroll, they lose that opportunity then of us busing them in this district as part of open enrollment. Then it's a responsibility of the parent to provide that. So in the assessment of that, there's been a couple emails that have thanked us for that, and they were glad to know that there would be busing. Wish that would have been just said right away. They would have had no concern. But there was only one family set that I would say was attending the meetings that specifically that was their main concern. It was brought up a couple times about the busing and about those individuals that live in that area, but they were not at those meetings in attendance. So it probably, my assessment, it'd be much more difficult. We tried to place the meeting so we'd have one at Renberg to be able to accommodate up in that area, one down at George McGovern so we could accommodate in that area. I still think transportation is a very difficult situation to be able to get there. And we know that from our liaisons, our social workers, other individuals who go out and work with those families. We know that's a difficult situation. And so that's where we provide the busing from those areas and would continue to do so if it was changed so that they'd be attending at Marcelo Lebeau.
Thank you. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. For those families in particular who depend on the busing, and I know that from over in that Career Avenue area, it being such a long drive, those kids have to get on the bus before 7 a.m. How is the attendance in particular with that group and the Career Avenue area? Do we have numbers on that?
We do not. That's something we could absolutely pull. So we could pull that and see that. I don't, great question, and I don't have the information. We can absolutely pull that to look at it. And that would be part of, if the board agrees with the recommendation, that'll be part of that we look at. My initial anticipation will be because we provide busing, it may be very similar to whether we change the location one way or another. The individual families that did decide to work together to a significant number of the open enrolled kids are individuals that live in the boundaries that decided to go to other schools. It's a smattering across, but the predominant still went to Marcelo Lebeau. And they live in that area and they were able to figure out the transportation. Others there are not able to. So we'll have to look at that. That's a number that we could pull to definitely look to see how that would be impacted.
Well, I just know as a parent, it would be a lot easier for me to get my kid on the bus at 7:30 versus 6:55. Just if we're thinking about attendance. The other question I had, what's the other question? Oh, you already answered that one, I guess. Do we have another way to get feedback from those families in that Career Avenue area?
We could do that as well. We could look to see with the liaisons, and I think that's a significant part, that if we tried to combine it in with parent-teacher conferences or something of that nature and have our liaisons work with them. We've talked about that to be able to have some informational sessions as we move forward so that they would better understand that, so there's no misunderstanding in the information. But you'd almost have to tie it to an event at the school that they would already be coming to and try to combine that to leverage a good number of individuals coming out. So yes, we have talked some about that. That'd be obviously something that we would do as part of the communication process as we move forward prior to next November, voting on this again. But that's a great point, and we will absolutely look at that. Our liaisons and social workers would be the key contacts there to get the information to them.
Go ahead, Dawn Marie.
Again, maybe I missed it, but for Marcelo Lebeau, if that could be the primary location for the shift, what's their enrollment and what do they have capacity for right now?
So a 4-section school, we're going to do the quick math by 2 math teachers. If you're figuring roughly 120 or 150 for a 1-section school times the 4, so we're going to look at that at being over 500 or somewhere in that ballpark. And currently they're about the 280 mark, give or take. Part of that number also they have, so that number that I said about 500, there's also a RISE program there. Those kids will be into that 280 number, but they don't take, because there's separate classrooms built for our RISE program. So it is a 4-section school to be able to handle that plus the RISE program. So we're roughly just under half capacity on that.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, just did a tour of Renberg the other day, but I was told that Renberg is about 34% of those are on IEPs or SPED services. Is that right?
Correct. Roughly about 30%, 35% of the students attending at Renberg do receive services, special education services. District-wide, we're about 16.6%, somewhere right in there.
Yeah, so that's significantly higher.
It is, yep. It's a higher, and part of that is there's probably been more availability of open enrollment options at Renberg comparative to some other schools that may be closer. Because you look on that whole west side, once they hit about 85% capacity of program, so you're looking at Pettigrew, JFK, all those schools that hit along that whole west side would be at that 85% mark and would not be able to accept additional students that way, traditional open enrollment or other. And so really then you're looking at Marcella or Renberg probably along that line, because same way with Hayward. Hayward would have been closed in so many ways as well. Because you start to hit to a certain number, we have to make sure that we maintain space for individuals that move into that HAC or home attendance center. So we make sure, so that's why we put percent capacities, and we do the estimates going through every single school. So we know what that is, so we know whether we can tell somebody, yes, we can approve the open enrollment or not. Renberg's been one for the last few years that has had open capacity space.
Thank you. Did you have?
Just to piggyback on that, can you just explain the RISE program in case we have people listening who don't know what it is?
So a RISE program is for our students that receive additional support and help. They have more maybe significant needs and cognitive or physical. And so they'll receive additional supports and help, and usually their class size are going to be closer to that, 10 range for the allocation of staff to student ratio, because they'll just have a higher, some may be nonverbal, wheelchair. There could be a multitude of different things. And so there's additional help, supports, and benefits that go with that. And we have a great program going all the way from preschool that will go all the way through the age of 21 for students that would qualify for that.
And do you have the numbers on class size at Marcella?
I do. Let me get them.
Yeah. So we have, and currently, obviously with a larger school, you balance those numbers more evenly where you don't do as many blended. Now, it does not mean that we don't have blended at other locations. There's sometimes where certain classes just don't work out with the numbers, and it doesn't justify the addition of an additional teacher. So we do some blended at some different schools. Predominance of that is you may have a fourth grade that is just on the edge and a fifth grade that has too many, so too few and too many, so you run a fourth and fifth blend, and it saves one teacher allocation, but it never shortens the school in itself of that allocation of 24.2 to 1. Matter of fact, at every school where we're below that allocation, our district set standard, we're significantly below that right now on our allocation across the board at all elementaries. So you have the numbers?
I do not have access to my laptop here, but if we can pull it up, I can get it as mine's being used. But,
Sorry,
Yes,
I did
it
not.
is.
what I
give you a heads
recall
up.
is Kinder is, it has about 58 kids divided by 3 sections, so it's around that 18, 19 number. First grade's right around that low 20, 21, 22. I know that in third grade, I think it's third or fourth grade, their class size, there's 40 kids split across 2 sections at 20 and 20. And so they're all in the low 20s, with the exception, I think fifth grade is probably their largest, which is the mid to upper 20s is where we're at.
Okay, he has stalled long enough and given me an opportunity. So you'd asked for Marcella LeBeau. And so when we look at Marcella LeBeau, the class sizes right now is, when I pulled these numbers, which was when we did the student count for school funding, 18.67, kindergarten 19, first grade 22, second grade 25, third 19, and 29. So their fifth grade class was a larger one, which you see, that was one section of 29. So it's hard to split that one out. And so as you go across, the average at the school there is 21.25. So it's one of our lower ones. And that's where I said, rarely where you see a school that is above that number, we've tried to continue to allocate. And Obviously, that's going to be based, to continue to do that, will be based on what we get for funding from the state. But currently, that's what their ratios are.
Okay. Well, it certainly has been a comprehensive, thoughtful process. So thank you, Mr. Conrad. Thank you, Dr. Nold. Thank you to City Planning, who gave some guidance, and also, and most importantly, the families and the teachers at Renberg. As a board, we have a fiduciary responsibility to both all the taxpayers as well as our constituents. And those are you, and you're here tonight, and we're glad you're here. And so with that, we have, it looks like, 5 individuals signed up to provide some public input per our board guidelines for our work session. I'm going to quickly go through the following rules for input at this meeting. Number 1, there's a topic limitation. Public input during the work session must be limited to items on the work session agenda. Number 2, the sign-up requirement. I have those now. So individuals wishing to address the board, you needed to sign up with the business manager or the board support person before the start of the meeting. When you come up, please give your full name and your address. We need confirmation that you do reside in the Sioux Falls School District, or if not a resident, that you have a child that is attending the Sioux Falls School District. Tonight's topic, as we've stated, is Renberg Elementary. Our time limit for this evening, you will have a total of 3 minutes to speak. The speaker time may be limited or extended, and we're just going to keep it as is. Given that we have 5 individuals sign up to speak, as I said, we will give you each about 3 minutes. If the board has any follow-up questions, we'll give you a little bit more time. So there's some flexibility in there. One speaker's time cannot be transferred to another speaker. If you have as a group want to speak all together, you're able to do that. Then you would have 4 to 5 minutes to speak on behalf of the group. So those that are here to speak, would you like to speak as a group? Do you have one person that would like to speak, or would you all like to speak individually? I'll leave that up to you. I'll give you a couple seconds here to decide. Okay. Yeah. And then our board member Murin here, he will hold cards up so that you know how many minutes you have remaining. Okay. So, and if order is not anybody's priority, I'm just going to go off of how these were handed to me, if that's okay. Okay. The first speaker for this evening is Tawna Mayat. Am I saying that right? Okay, well, please, when you come up, say, and give your address.
Hello, I am Tawna Moit.
Tawna, thank you.
Yes. And if you ever see me again and need to ask, I prefer that.
Okay.
My address is 911 North Oaks Ave in Hartford, South Dakota. And my daughter Meredith attends Renberg. I'm nervous, so I'm going to read off my phone. Hello, my name is Tawna. Although I am not here to speak just for me, I'm here to speak for all the parents who feel the same way I do. Renberg is more than a building, more than numbers on a chart. Renberg is a second home, a safe place for our children to learn and grow. I truly believe closing Renberg will have a huge impact not only on my child, but any child who goes there. The children and staff at Renberg are worth more than anything you might save from closing the doors. We ask you consider keeping it open, letting it regrow its numbers, and continue to provide a safe, amazing place for children to grow and learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Tawna. The next speaker this evening is Joshua Lamar.
My name is Joshua Lamar. I live at 911 North Oaks Avenue, Unit 215 in Hartford as well. My daughter is enrolled at Renberg and has been there since first grade. I wrote up things to read, and I don't feel that it does great, so I'm going to try to go off the cuff a little bit. I don't have all of the information that you guys have provided quite so clearly. But I can say without a doubt that the school size and the community that this provides has, I'm sorry. What the school provides is different than what is in one of the more city schools. It is that smaller size that does that. They are more than a school. It's more of a community at that point. Our daughter was in kindergarten in the school and chose to open enroll her out into Renberg. At that point, we were still living in Sioux Falls. And the growth that she has shown as with the attention that she gets there is phenomenal. And I think all the schools in town do a great job at something. And I think Renberg's thing that they do is that one-on-one and that personal growth that they get from a community, from a tight-knit community that they're not going to get elsewhere. And I think that there are many students that can grow from that. And I think that the 30% with IEPs really shows that all of those students are still getting what they get there. And I think people keep coming for that reason. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Linda Nix.
Okay, my name is Linda Nix, and I live at 6205 North Purple Martin Avenue. I am in the Renberg district, right up there, just real close to it. We moved to the area in 1995, and we had 5 children go through Renberg. Saw lots of changes. We have a second group of kiddos that are going through Renberg now. Our son has extra needs, so he was not able to stay at Renberg. So the school district has done a really good job of making sure his needs were met in other buildings. But our daughter, she's been with us 2.5 years. And when she came to us, Renberg was going to be her first real experience in the school. Due to no fault of her own, you know, she just was deprived education prior, was at Children's Home Society for a moment, and then came to us. The small setting at Renberg, I believe, is why she is successful and does not need extra support on an IEP or any type of special education services. Because everybody knows her. She knows everybody. So if there is anything that needs to be addressed, it can be taken care of right there in the moment, and she can be redirected and be successful daily at Renberg. So I've really appreciated that for her. We've been able to save the district money by her not needing any specialized services, and I hope that does continue for her. I am happy to hear that we're not closing at the end of the year. Is that correct? Because I think that is something that we were told in the first meeting, is we would close at the end of this year, which I think caused people to be very, very upset because it felt like the district was not being transparent with us. With the information tonight, knowing that we've got an entire year to figure out what is next, I think is hopeful. My daughter will be done. She's 4th grade this year, 5th grade next year, and then moving on. But on behalf of other families that have a heart for Renberg, to consider what else could happen to keep it open. Back in the day, Citibank was a corporate partnership. And that we were able to keep it open through that. Is there something else that would allow Renberg to stay open? I know that they've redone the levees, all kinds of things. There's less of flooding up in that area. There is growth. My neighborhood, other neighborhoods around us, we're aging out, downsizing. There will be younger families moving in. So if there's a way to keep it open, I believe that the people attending and future people attending would appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Jeffrey Trainer.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Trainer. I live at 3200 North Galaxy Lane. The reason I'm here is because due to scheduling conflicts on my side, I was never able to attend the parent sessions. So I just wanted to learn what's going on and what to look forward to. I have 2 children currently right now, twins that are in the 1st grade at Redenberg, and they really love that school. My oldest daughter went to Redenberg, and what I've seen is being in a small school, it becomes like a family. And I've seen her and her kids, or her friends, as they moved from Redenberg to McGovern to Jefferson High School. Those bonds that they build in those small schools stick together. Those girls, that clique, it just goes with them through their lives. And I want to have that for my 2 youngest. Excuse me. Ms. Johnson mentioned like that area of the 68. I'm that person. As a matter of fact, 3 houses down, I would be in LeBeau. I'm on the bubble. So my kids have that long drive because we're the first ones to be picked up. They do fine. And I think from our perspective, we don't look at that long bus as being a detriment. I look at that as this is, I don't know if I'd call it a small sacrifice, but this is a small price to pay for the huge benefit that we get by going to Renberg and being in that small school environment where the kids get a lot more attention, I think. But anyhow, that's what I just wanted to talk about, to just say that we love the school. I don't think there's anything I can say that's going to sway a decision one way or the other. I just wanted to come out here and voice my support for the school and how they do a really great job. And I do not envy the decisions that you have to make in your position. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last speaker this evening is Matt. I can't read the last name. Lease? Matt Lease? Thank you.
My address is 47057 258th Street. It is actually it would be in the Tri-Valley District, but we just purchased that house and we were actually right next to the Renberg School, like on Country Lane. We just sold that property 5 months ago or something.
Okay.
My thought of closing it, I feel like it's a budget, and if it's budget, I think you said something about like Lennox and building towards Lennox. I don't think Lennox was interested in building or doing anything extra there. And then if you guys want to build a new school, why couldn't we help build towards this Renberg school and keep it there? What is the EAID, or what is the program for the kids that need special?
Rise?
Yeah, yep. So the percentages are very high there as well. We currently are living in Brandon and driving all the way to the Renberg school to keep our daughter in that school. I have one daughter there that she goes to the Renberg school, and the older daughter goes to Georgia McGovern currently. I think I just don't see, as far as budget-wise, if you guys are willing to build a new school. We have a current school that's already in place. I understand the growth. I know a big part of it is the distance traveled. All the people are open and rolling and have no issues traveling there. One from, is it Hartford? One from Colton. We're coming from Brandon. I mean, we could move them to Brandon because we're staying out in that area right now. I just don't see the closure of it. I think the growth, as far as his projections that are right across from McGovern, they're going to grow a lot faster than 5 years. I feel like Michelle LeBeau will get over, it'll be just like, is it the Hawthorne School? Hawthorne School is capped. It's capped at capacity. I think Marcelo Lebeau, with all the new growth around it already, will be capacity. So then we're going to start having 27 kids in all these classes, where this will help keep a smaller version, of just keeping it more open. And then with our daughter, she's doing some testing where she might have to go into like the special ed or something, the program like that. The teachers there are really, really good. They help very, very well. She's very, very comfortable with them. And breaking that apart, I guess the point of school is the teachers to help the kids, right? Not to budget and save money. I think that we need to look at the kids, and if it's such a high percentage, 30-some%, let's look at our kids and for their future, and we're there to help them, not move the money around, but willing to build new schools. So is that actually saving a budget? I don't know all the numbers, but that's kind of my point of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Again, we want to thank all of you for coming tonight and thank you for your input. We will have, when will we next?
So just process through the summary part and I want to make sure there was no misunderstanding. Ms. Nix, you had spoken, thank you for that. The intention was, and so I want to clear that up, that if the board was recommended to vote on that for next year, the vote would have been this coming Monday night. So the original discussion was on whether we would do that for this next school year, the closure at the end of this year for the next school year. So that part was correct. Part of after the input and the information, we decided to wait and have the discussion again almost 1 year from now, or a little bit before there, obviously. And so not to close it for the next year, but look at that for the year after. So part of the conversations had with staff, the parent meetings, to be able to hold on that, to be able to look at some of the boundaries, to make sure we had all that information so that we could see if we could only make a move for students once. So I just wanted to clarify that. And the others, thank you for your input and feedback. Part of the process then, there is no need for a vote unless the board decides not to and wishes to put it as an agenda item. But if the board decides not to follow the recommendation and move forward with something of a vote on Monday, other than that, there is no further recommendation that need to be made. We can, any board members that have any other questions, we could do that. But we would continue then to look at the numbers, the growth, areas of that, what we would do for schools, whether there's additional buildings, additions, movement and boundaries to look at some of those center schools. We'll do all that over the next few months and continue to talk with the city so that we can have some of that information prepared to be able to start to present it out. That obviously will involve discussions with multiple other schools then. And so you can't have those discussions in that amount of time. It would take time to be able to do that.
Yeah, the process overall is very transparent. We annually review all the enrollment. We have a close working relationship with the city, so we know what some of those growth trends look like, because bottom line, we're here to do right by our families, and it was so encouraging to hear your testimony in what your public education has meant to you all and to your kids, and that's why we're here. And I know we're talking about Renberg and your school, and getting to hear the significance that your teachers have had in the life of your children is why we're here, and appreciated hearing that. Gail, did you have your hand up?
Yes. First of all, I too want to thank all of you for coming here tonight. And I know many of you were probably at the other meetings as well. It's really important to get not only parent feedback, but feedback of the community and feedback of the staff. I think the district has done a good job of soliciting feedback, giving you opportunities. We like to purport that we always make database decisions, you know, in education, that we look at the best numbers and the best projections that we can. That doesn't mean we don't have a heart for kids. 41 years in public education before I retired. You know, kids were my business. And so obviously you have a heart for your kids and all the kids that attend Renberg. And it is a tough decision, but I hope you feel like you've had a chance to express your concerns, express your thoughts. And I guess I'm thinking that I hope you feel heard. So thank you for coming tonight, and we will do the best we can.
Anyone else? Okay, can I, oh, Mark, go ahead. No? Okay, can I please get a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned for the evening.